but just in case for future reference, if y'all try to go live on YouTube from your mobile phone now, you got to have 1,000 subscribers to do that now. So didn't know if y'all knew that.
Wow.
Yep. From your mobile
that's
phone.
lame.
I think we're good now, but if you wanted to go live like from your cell phone to YouTube Live, you got to have 1,000 subscribers. Okay.
I better get to work.
We rolling. All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, podcast peeps. So glad you're back. We are back with a big show coming out hard for the May 1st, 2019. Coming out hard like 8-Ball and MJG. A lot of y'all probably don't even know what I'm talking about. I really seriously doubt Dan knows what I'm talking about. DDT may know what I'm talking about. But that's how we're going to come out today, because we're going to take a swing at all 3 major sports. We're going to talk NFL draft, recap that, talk about our teams and just wins and losses of the NFL draft. We're going to talk NBA playoffs, and we're going to touch on MLB and some fantasy baseball. And we also got drama. Dun-dun-dun-dun. We've got some beef, apparently, between the My Fantasy podcast and the Thomas Take podcast. You guys know Ryan Thomas, the Thomas Take podcast, has been on many times. So apparently we've got a little bit of beef. You do not want to miss that at the end of the show involving these guys. Dan Schalk, the MyFantasySportsTalk.com site, My Fantasy Podcast, and Ryan Thomas and DDT, Dill Torado, is even involved in that as well with some fantasy baseball shakes. So just a lot of stuff going on that kind of stirred the pot between those guys and just kind of started a beef. And we'll talk about that at the end of the show. So do not want to miss that. I am Brandon Reed, one of your hosts. My co-host is the owner and president of this whole thing, Dan Schalk. How's it been, man? Baby time?
Baby time soon. Put the stroller together today. But for those who don't know, Baby Schalk will be here in about 1 month. May 1st, June 4th is the due date. But you know, babies can be any time, and I have a feeling this one's going to be a little bit of a stickler. So she might come out whenever she wants. So it could be soon. But we're ready. We're getting ready in the household of Schalk.
Well, time is flying, and I guess I just really have just lost track of all time. And I was saying before we got on the air, what are we about? October? Is that when the due date is? I was trying to give you more time. You just can't do this right now. I was trying to give you, how about first day of fall? Leaves falling, cool weather, all that crap. And it just ain't going to happen. Baby going to be here in just a matter of weeks. So, well, good luck with that. And I hope everything is going well. And we'll have a new member on the podcast coming up this summer. You'll have to get family row seating there and a wide angle webcam lens so we can take in the whole nice Schalk family on the podcast coming up real soon. So I want to introduce our next guy, DDT, Dylan Davis Trotto. A lot to talk about with this guy. I don't even know what to call him anymore. We call him DDT. Dylan Davis Trotto. He goes by Dill Torado, performing in New York City now, and he's also looking for a roommate. So, guys, gals, hit him up. What's up, man?
Actually, to update, I've no longer tried to change my name. I'm just going by my full name now. So DDT is honestly just fine, because that's how the announcer at the show I did in New York City announced me, which, by the way, if any of you are in New York City round about the end of May, I'm headlining at the Clement Lounge for Buddha Comedy Club. They essentially were so happy with my performance, they gave me a gold shit, which is essentially just the award for the best comic of the night. And they say, at any time you could come in, you could demand a headline spot, and we will give it to you. It's a 5 to 10 minute spot, but 5-10 minutes was enough for me to prove, I'm kind of good at this. So yeah, I'm doing that, and yeah, I need a new roommate, because I'll try to keep my voice down for this one. I am in the middle of hell, and I just I really want to get out of here. I really want to get out of here.
Well, you can't be stuck in the middle of hell, man. You gotta make some arrangements if that's what it takes. So.
Oh well, I'm not saying that. Maybe I'm over exaggerating. It's just that I kind of want to either find a better roommate or get my own space, which may actually be my next move. Is to actually finally get my own place. I've always lived with someone from my parents to college to my first apartment, and so now is the time for me to grow up, put my big boy pants on, and learn how to clean my own house on my own.
That was kind of
fashion.
when I was younger like that, it was just kind of always a thing, man. I was either gonna, work and maybe sacrifice and not, live real comfortably, but I would rather have my own place because me and roommates never really jived, because I can't be responsible for others if they don't clean up or if they leave the door open all times of day or stuff comes up missing, just random stuff like that. Your food gets eaten, me and roommates never really mixed. So I was always kind of, I got to be independent, as far as living arrangements go and roommates go. So I understand there, man. Big decision, but big things happening for you. And really glad to see the comedy's moving on along and you're climbing that ladder there.
It's climbing the ladder. It's a very tough ladder, very intimidating ladder, but I think I kind of proved that after that night. Oh, I'm definitely in the. I definitely can hang with at least the semi-pro talent of the comedy world because I was around some pretty, locally people in the East Village really know most of the people I was with. I was an unknown. I just kind of walked into the building, set my bag down, and walked onto the stage, did my spiel, and got a hand clap, and then got the best comic of the night. I didn't think I even did that good, honestly. I kind of went with the set that I normally go with, but this one was kind of one to kind of wow the people, and it ended up doing well. I don't think it's my best work, but if that's honestly what gets me this point, I guess I'm exceeding expectations. But I will temper such pride. I'll be very humble about this because while I'm doing this and trying to make a stand in my own hometown, I'm starting out my own comedy show up here with a friend of mine, and hopefully that will gain some attention. We're supposed to be having a show in June. We're still working out talent. I'm still booking a venue, which actually I have booked the venue, but we're just working out details, payment, stuff like that, because, your boy's supposed to start making some money doing this, which is...
There you go.
Well, what I was in it for, to get rich.
DDT coming out hard like 8Ball and MJG. You know who 8Ball and MJG is, DDT?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, I'm sorry. Our boy Nick Pertins probably knows who 8Ball and MJG is. Okay, it's a rap group from like the 90s. They have Memphis roots and Houston roots, but they were really, really big in the 90s. So, yeah, you probably wouldn't know anything what I'm talking about. Nick
I'll look him up.
Yeah, got to. 8Ball and MJG coming out hard.
8Ball and MJG.
Yeah. 8Ball.
I gotta look them up. They sound vaguely familiar, but I gotta look them up.
You may know some songs, but like I said, Nick Pertins. Have you heard from Nick Pertins in a while, Dan?
I have not. Pertins gone silent ever since baseball season started.
After winning the ship.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically it. Yeah. It was like he just dropped the mic on us and he disappeared. So Nick, we got the show. Come on, let's go. Well, send in your novel long questions, statements, whatever they are.
Well, to be fair, we have really kind of stepped back from the My Fantasy podcast a little bit, been super busy, a lot of stuff going on. Of course, draft time is always a busy time for us. So you draft teams, all your teams out there, no matter who you root for, there's going to be your team drafted somebody, and Dan's probably got draft profiles up there right now. So big time for My Fantasy Sports Talk. It's been really busy with the draft. But something else before we move on from just the miscellaneous intro conversational talk here. I was very disappointed to learn a month or so back that you guys also didn't know what I was talking about. I'm just dating myself all over the place here, but you guys had never seen Wildcats, the football movie, the comedy from 1986. None of you guys have.
No, I haven't, and I looked into it, watching it. It's on Amazon Prime. It's like $4. So, I mean, maybe
so I told you Goldie Hawn is like the coach, right? You probably looked in a little bit, but Wesley Snipes is one of her players, probably his first movie ever. I don't know that with 100% certainty, but it was 1986. So
before he went to jail.
Wesley Snipes way before. This is way before New Jack City. So Wesley Snipes is one of her players, and Woody Harrelson is one of her players. Also, the real Nipsey Russell, that is, legendary comedian actor, which you probably know and appreciate, DDT. I know you've heard of Russell.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was the principal in that movie. Just a great movie. You guys, it's a classic, legendary classic football movie. You just have to see it. Put it on your list. That's all. Nick Pertins, I hope you've heard of that. And a lot of our fans, I hope y'all can comment and leave your comments and send Dan some feedback. Like, you've never seen Wildcats and you call yourself a football expert? Man, you just took a dip. Your ratings just took a dip. So, but anyway, got to check it out. Wildcat. So let's open up the show talking about the NFL draft. It went off pretty well, I would say. We did not do a live podcast for it because, watching it just casually on my couch, I'm like, damn, this is taking forever. 8 minutes between picks.
Oh my gosh.
How did we ever do a live show through this whole thing? You're talking about 32 picks, and it took to 11:30 Central Time. So it was like after midnight on the East Coast to finish all of these picks. So how do we do it? But the good news is, like I was just saying, your team, no matter who you root for, drafted some players, and those draft profiles are probably on myfantasysportstalk.com right now, at least the top prospects anyway for the first couple of rounds, submitted and created by yours truly, Dan Schalk of myfantasysportstalk.com. So again, congrats, Dan. A lot of hard work. You nailed it again. So just appreciate the hard work, on behalf of myself and all the universe of myfantasysportstalk.com.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't eclipse what I did last year. I think I had almost every single prospect covered last year. This year, baby in my life are coming. I got to get ready for that. But we still managed to get over 100 scouting reports and profiles out there. And hey, we crashed the site on Thursday during the first round. So that's always fun. I mean, a lot of hectic times, but it came back up quickly, so that's good. But yeah, it was a busy weekend. Definitely loved it. Working hard, and I'm with you. Without doing the show, there were a lot of negatives to not having a live draft show. Obviously, it even took longer, but the drinks were flowing on my end. I don't know if you guys were doing it, but man, 5 hours of I was just going to town with each pick. It got me into trouble. So
you probably were off Friday too, right?
No, I wasn't. It was a rough Friday. Usually I take off. I take off usually the whole weekend, but I don't know. It was an odd time in my life. We'll just say that. But yeah, drinks were flowing, picks were happening, and trash talk was being made. So it went down, and so did the site. But it came back up, and we're very thankful to everybody that visited the site during that the draft time, because we did eclipse a great deal, over 20,000 on the round one alone on the site. So that was great to see.
There you go, home run. Mm-hmm. What I kind of wanted to talk about is just kind of roundtable here between the three of us and just talk about, we all root for different teams, and I'll also throw Buffalo in there just because we have Buffalo roots, so we can talk about Buffalo a little bit too. But Dan is a big Dallas Cowboys fan. DDT is, of course, a big New York Jets fan. I root for the Tennessee Titans, and then we got the Buffalo Bills, which Dan knows a lot about that, and DDT probably does too, because it's so close to the perimeter there. So you guys are pretty knowledgeable about the Buffalo Bills, and then we can just talk about some winners and losers of it. But so let's start out with your Cowboys, Dan, who I did notice picked up one of my guys. Didn't know how much you knew about Tony Pollard, but I think you got a pretty good player there.
Yeah, I think they're going to actually use him. He's going to be like their receiving back. From what I've watched, I mean, that's where he excels, is going to be in the receiving game.
He is actually more. I view him more of a receiver, to be honest with you. Because we had the home run hitter as far as our running back in Henderson. I always it seems like to me Pollard was always catching more passes than taking off with the ball and running.
Yeah, and I expect him to be used like that. I was happy with the pick. I wanted them to pick up a running back. They ended up getting Mike Weber in the 7th round, who I could really care less. Everybody's like, oh, it was Zeke's old teammate at Ohio State. He's not going to make the team. Don't worry about Mike Weber. It's about Tony Pollard. I like that pick, 4th round, day 3. That's some solid value there. So I was happy with it. Overall, with the Cowboys draft, didn't impress me. They got Tristan Hill in the 2nd round. I guess the way you look at it, or the way Cowboys fans are looking at it, is, well, we got the best receiver in the draft in Amari Cooper because we traded our 1st round pick for him last year.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You had no 1st round pick, so that's kind of even more grueling. Of course, you're a football NFL aficionado and fan, but you sat through with drinks flowing that whole first night with your team not even having a pick.
Yeah, but that's okay, man. Draft time is my time to shine, so I was still enjoying myself. And I did look at it like, okay, Amari Cooper, and he would have been the top ranked wide receiver in this draft. He's still only 24. So I do like that. I'm okay with it. I hated it at the time, but he at least can catch ankle passes from Dak. So, that's good. Tristan Hill was our first pick, which is a second rounder. I didn't have him graded that high, but he does have the potential. So D-line, I liked it. The one thing I didn't like as a Cowboys fan is they didn't address safety, and they never seem to address safety. They took Donovan Wilson in the 6th round. He's a hard hitter, but a liability in coverage. I don't even know if he'll make the team. But we continue to trot out Jeff Heath every single year, who is a nice player, but he's no starting safety in the NFL. So 50-50 on it. I'm probably how you are with Tennessee. Brandon, I know you're not ecstatic like some of the fan base I think might be, but I'm okay with it, but I think they could have done better.
Right. DDT, so how did your Jets do in your opinion?
I think, honestly, I don't really have much of an issue with the team in terms of how they drafted. I think Quinnen Williams wasn't the pick I wanted.
We saw that with our mock.
Yeah, I went with who I thought Greg Williams was going to go with, because I think he wanted someone, more to his type of style that he had with Ndamukong Suh. But I think Quinnen Williams, honestly, though, I mean, he was rated, by Kuiper, and I think as the best defensive player in the draft. I would have gone with Josh Allen. But all in all, Quinnen Williams is a hard hitting. I mean, the guy just knows nothing more than just how to be powerful down in the trenches and be able to hit you quickly. When I was watching, I looked up his draft profile. Dan did a great draft profile on him. I looked him up on YouTube. I just got as much as I could on the guy. That is probably a solid player to put down there. I think the Jets' defensive line just got so much better. I think overall, from the rest of the picks down, they've addressed what they needed to address. Fill what positions they can fill. At this point, it's going to be up to Adam Gase, Sam Darnold to figure out how they utilize every player that they sign in free agency and use in the draft. I don't think the draft picks will be as high profiled in the team this year unless some guys break out. But otherwise, it was solid. I give it a B draft grade. Good job.
I think you pretty much got a home run and a no-brainer with Quinnen Williams. I think you pretty much had to take that player. I think was probably the next best talent on the board for you. But you didn't have a second-round pick, so you skipped around. You had a couple of thirds. But that's always going to kind of affect your draft when you go from the third pick in the draft and then you don't pick again until early in the third round. So that's why you may not have that punch, of this year's draft that you really wanted to, but we'll see how it all shakes out. I think you did get a home run though. So Dan was referencing my Tennessee Titans, and it's not that I hate any of the guys that they picked. And I wanted to get your opinion on this, Dan. I just thought the focus was all wrong. Your defense was ranked third best in the NFL last year. Pretty much everyone I see, all the fans and a lot of the analysts were saying, got to have that pass rusher. I understand that, but your offense was the 29th ranked offense in the NFL. And all I heard all this offseason, pretty much halfway through the season, was Mariota has no weapons. The offensive line sucks and the receivers are garbage. Delaney Walker is pretty much your only viable tight end. Once he went down, the offense went to complete hell. So to me, I'm looking at stacking offensive picks. I was very upset that they did miss out on Jawaan Taylor, which they could have taken instead of Jeffrey Simmons, which I'm high on. The incident that any ESPN showed, I believe the ESPN really embarrassed themselves with that. That happened in high school. The kid went through his Mississippi State career, hadn't had an incident since. He's been crying in all of his public appearances. He's very remorseful for all that happened. Let's erase that, okay? But he had a torn ACL. He's not even probably going to play until 2020. I love it. He could make a huge difference down the road, but is that what we're doing? Are we waiting for 2020? This is a make or break year for your quarterback, Marcus Mariota. You gave him the 5th-year option, but he needs to do something this year. So I like Jawaan Taylor, and I also really like Cody Ford. So, and then we also we moved up and got we didn't move up. We took AJ Brown. So what do you think about A.J. Brown, Dan? He was ranked behind DK Metcalf, if I'm not mistaken, but they were 1 and 2 as far as your rankings in wide receiver. So you think we got a pretty good receiver there, right?
Yeah, I do. I in my scouting report of AJ Brown, I said he was the most ready of all of the receivers to play right away. So that I do believe will help Mariota. But yeah, I'm with you. I think during that draft, I love Jeffrey Simmons. He's a top 5 talent in this draft. He would have went in the top 5 had he not torn his ACL. So I think Robinson kind of went with the best player available that on his board. Yes, he's not going to contribute right away, but you can't. It's hard to pass up that talent at 17 or 19 or wherever they took him. So I'm okay with it, but I understand exactly what you mean. You still look at that Tennessee offense, and it's not scary by any means.
And so they pick up guard Nate Davis, which I asked you about, and you didn't even bother to do film on him. So
no, I didn't.
How do you feel about this? Is this going to be any kind of impact player? Or is he going to be a guy that just lingers around the team for 2 or 3 years and never amounts to anything?
I think it's going to be difficult for him to make an impact right away. Anytime a guy from Charlotte it's going to be difficult for them to just jump into your starting lineup. So, I mean, I don't know too much. I'm not well educated on Nate Davis from Charlotte to tell you what he's going to do. But I didn't obviously have him ranked in my top 10 linemen because I scouted all my top 10 there, and he didn't hit it. So, and this was a very weak offensive line draft. If you missed out on those top guys,
right,
you were not getting anybody who was going to be special. So, like you said, Jawaan Taylor, who was my number 2 tackle,
who went to a division rival.
Yep. Oh yeah. The Jags won the first 2 rounds of that draft. And Cody Ford, coming to Buffalo, that's heartbreaking to me. A guy who doesn't like to see the Bills succeed living in Buffalo. So that was hard.
He was top on my board as far as needs go for the Tennessee Titans, and just in my opinion, I'm no expert, but I think I know I can analyze a team and see what team needs are. And when your offense is ranked 29th last and you can't score 18 points and your defense is in the top 3, I'm stacking offense. They didn't address tight end, which I think we need to do desperately because Delaney's 35 coming off a whole missed year off a broken ankle. We got to have more than just Delaney going down, killing our offense. And a lot of the good teams are running 2 tight ends now. You really need 2 good tight ends to really be a successful offense in the NFL, or at least have 2 options. We don't. Jonnu Smith and who's the other guy, Dan?
Anthony Firkser.
Anthony Firkser. That ain't going to get it done. I'm no problem.
He might make New Breed's fantasy team, but he's not going to make that Tennessee starting lineup.
It's not going to happen. So still need to address a tight end. So anyway, that was just I don't hate any of the players. I'm just thinking, why are we stacking? We had 6 picks and 4 of them were on the defensive side of the ball. 2 of them were on the offensive side of the ball. One was a guard who may not ever really play. And one of them was a receiver, which I like, but that you're still not helping Mariota, who is in a make or break year, in my opinion. I'm just saying we need backup. I would have drafted multiple offensive linemen and probably at least a tight end. But hey, my theory now is do what you got to do. It's just a matter of time before Tannehill comes in and outshines Mariota in training camp and preseason games, and you got a quarterback controversy on your hands. So I'm just ready for it to play out now. But I'm almost just ready for it to play out and just be done with it. This is everyday conversation. So just not the way I would have drafted. I have faith in John Robinson. I love John Robinson. He's added talent. He's got us to where we are. He's flipped the team around from Rushton Webster, who is an absolute complete joke. So I'm not going to complain that way. I'm just thinking, hey, your defense is great. Your offense sucks. Why aren't you drafting a little bit more offense on the offensive side? So Adam Humphries, Dan, what do you think about him? Is he going to make a pretty good impact? He's got 9 TDs in 4 years of NFL play.
He's solid. I don't think he's going to be the playmaker. Ultimately what Tennessee needs is Corey Davis to play like a top 5 pick like he was. And with the addition of AJ Brown on the outside, who can also play slot, I think, they have the ability there. It's whether or not, you have the quarterback that can actively get them the ball, without blocking. That's it.
Without doing the blocking.
Yes.
Yeah. Gotcha. So, but also you mentioned Bills. Bills got Cody Ford. Both you guys, DDT, did you keep up with the Bills much or see the players going to them? And how do you think they did?
I guess honestly, I think the Bills, not only people gave them a good draft grade, I thought they did fairly well.
At all.
I think all those picks were, again, solid because Buffalo, I feel, has regressed even though they have their quarterback, and I think he's going to be phenomenal. I think the kid's got a lot of promise, but I feel like they've regressed in where they've tried to plug players in that could be impacts. But I think this draft might just solve a lot of them. I think a lot of these picks were all, you know, you got you where they were picked, you got the best value out of that pick. A lot of teams this year, like for example with the Giants and getting Daniel Jones and not waiting until 17 to get him, they reached and used a top 10 pick on someone who was not valued at that type of position. Whereas the Bills, at each pick they made, I feel they took the right player based on the value of that player with that pick. So I guess we just have to wait and see. Hopefully they all pan out, but I don't think the Bills did a bad job drafting this year.
I don't think so either. I think they got 2 home runs with Ed Oliver and Cody Ford, honestly. So, I mean, anytime if you can get 2 solid, really great players out of your draft, you're doing pretty good because most of these guys don't really turn out to be anything. So, but we'll see. It's the Bills, right? You never know. But anyway, like I said, your team, no matter who you root for, drafted some players. Those players' draft profiles are most likely on myfantasysportstalk.com. So check out the site. Right now, the NFL tab, give it a click, give it a whirl. We're coming up with new content daily there. So can't wait for football season. We'll bookmark that right now and jump on to these NBA playoffs. So, Dan, I know this is uncharacteristic for me, and you're probably shocked, but I've kind of jumped on that Houston bandwagon. I just feel like Golden State is in a little bit championship hangover. I think Houston is more hungry. They were within an eyelash of beating, or a Chris Paul from beating the Warriors last year in the 7-game series. So, I just felt like this would be the year that Golden State just kind of takes a step back and just gets upset, if you would. So, this series right here, it is currently after last night 2-0 in favor of the Golden State Warriors. Now it just seems like a battle of attrition. Harden is bleeding from both eyes. Steph Curry has a dislocated finger, so it's just kind of an ugly war right now. So this series, in a nutshell, Dan, how do you feel about it? You still rolling with the hated Warriors?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the Warriors by any means. You know how I feel about Steph Curry. I would like to just punch him in the face if I ever saw him. Yeah, I don't think anybody's stopping the Warriors. It's nice to see my Nuggets still alive out there. But yeah, I don't see them stopping them. Listen, I think we saw in the first round against the Clippers, which I was surprised the Clippers won 2 games. But you can just see that it's Kevin Durant, and when he wants to take over and when he's going to be the focal point and be that guy, he can and he will. And he can drop 38 points in the first half and nobody's going to blink an eye. So I think, as long as they're locked in and focused, which they weren't in that first round series in all 6 games, but when they are, you're not going to beat them. And it's just – go to DDT's Knicks next year, KD, because I don't want them on the Warriors where it's just like a guaranteed win. And I think the Houston will steal a game or 2, but I don't think this is going to be a 7-game series. Or if it's 6, I'll be a little bit surprised.
Wow. Okay. What do you think, DDT? Warriors Rockets.
I don't ever underestimate the power of the Warriors, especially after what we've seen them do over the past few seasons. I know for a fact they're going to win the NBA championship. I don't care if the Bucks go against them. I don't care if the Celtics or Houston or whoever goes against them. This is a team that literally has too much firepower, where even if you take one player out of the wheel, they are just as strong. Because you have to also remember, and this goes back to the same thing we said for year after year, they did not need Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant needed them. So when they won that title without him, then he jumps onto the team that win titles with him. And you remember, we go back to the beginning of this season. I'll take you all the way back to, honestly, the first 20 games of the season where Draymond Green and Kevin Durant went at it. And Draymond Green, and we all heard him say this, we won without you. We don't need you. And it's so true. So no matter what injuries are plaguing Steph Curry, at the same time, as long as Durant is playing as he has, they are going to win a championship. They'll get through the Houston series. In terms of James Harden, wow, how do we not call that? Like, the man got punched in the face, had to walk off the court, and officiating is going to be a question mark in this series. But in the end, no matter who goes up against the Warriors on a bad night are still the favorites to win the NBA championship. That needs to be the highlight focus of this team. And in terms of Durant going where he's going, he comes to my team. Okay. great. Now what? Now what? Like
you hope for Zion
I
or
don't hold a lot of. I don't understand. These are two things that baffle me. I don't understand, number one, why he would come to the Knicks, and secondly, what he could win here. Like, if we manage to grab Kevin Durant and another superstar, and everyone's been pointing towards Kyrie Irving, and which, I mean, is great. I personally would love Damian Lillard, but after what he's done with Portland, I think they're going to lock him down because he essentially punched his ticket towards, getting as much of a contract as he wants of being a top 5 player. But anyway, it is what it is. I say Golden State will finish off the series in 5. I guess Houston will grab a game off of them. But we can't just say just because the Warriors go through a 6-game series with any team, even the Clippers, that they're at risk of being upset. I don't think they are at all.
And that's typically where I would go because I clearly think they're the best team. I think I really am leaning towards this is the best team over the last 5 years or so that I've seen in my lifetime. Yes, even better than the Michael Jordan Bulls because I believe there's just so much firepower on this team. It's so hard to outscore them on any given night. I don't care who you got. But I just feel like it's just kind of a gut feeling that they're kind of reeling a little bit. Like, man, they're finally going to get fatigued from just, so much success, and the Rockets going to punch back. And they've got talent. Now, I think their problem in game 1 is they shot, 14? Well, 14 of 47 from downtown. That ain't going to win you many games. This is way too many threes. And then in game 2 last night, their starting backcourt, the 3 players of Paul, Harden, and Gordon had 13 turnovers themselves, and they still shot 70 of 43. So they're shooting 43s. They're shooting more threes than Golden State. You better be hitting at a high enough clip if you're going to take that many threes. So, and plus they're not winning. They're not losing by much. They lost by 4 and 6, I believe, in game 1 and 2. So they're right there. They're not going anywhere. So. We go back to Houston now. But, hey, how about that game 1 call? DDT referenced the calls last night, missed calls. But how about that drop kick by Harden asking for the call? How you can complain about that, dude? It's being broken down so much you look ridiculous. I don't know if y'all saw the ESPN breakdown Scott Van Pelt did. But open shots, when he's open, you land like you normally do. But when he's contested, he's kicking his feet like 3-4 feet out, like he's trying to drop kick somebody. No. And that was kind of my beef with the whole Final Four game between Virginia in Auburn. The Virginia player impeded the Auburn player's space a little bit more, but to be honest with you, my whole beef on that thing was, look, the refs got to know there's 1.5 seconds left. They're going to have to throw up a miracle heave. The defensive player did not foul him across the head or the arm. He did not affect the shot. It was just a landing zone. I thought that was a very poor way to end that Auburn-Virginia game. You can't fall for that, man. And the offensive player flailed and flopped a little bit there, and I think sold the call. You don't make that call at that moment of last second and a half, man. That's just my opinion. So I was very proud of the NBA refs for not making that crazy bogus call to end game 1. But I don't know, just a gut feeling. My next point with the West is Denver and Portland are just lambs to the slaughter for whoever wins the Rockets Warriors series, right? I mean, I'm not crazy about thinking that, right? I mean, that's got to be the least interesting series that's going on right now. The Nuggets and the Blazers.
But I think it might end up being one of the most competitive. I can see that one going 7. To show you how much Buffalo does not know anything about basketball or the NBA, there's a prominent sports writer in Buffalo, Jerry Sullivan, wrote for the Buffalo News for 2 decades plus. And for some reason this year, he decided to get into basketball. He was fired from the News, I should say, as well, the local newspaper here. And he put out a tweet the other day that said, after watching the Nuggets this postseason, he would take Nikola Jokic over anybody in the NBA, including Giannis Antetokounmpo. If he had the first pick in an entire draft, he would take the Joker as the best player in the NBA right now. I support the Nuggets. I'm not as diehard as I was watching every single game like I used to. And I like Jokic. I think he's a great player. Maybe, top 15, top 10.
But they went 7 games with the 7 seed.
Come on.
San Antonio.
Come on. Him over Giannis? I mean, that's crazy. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. No.
And he stood by it. He's like he's going to town. Like, yes, I am right with this. And that's the type of, I'm sure everybody has those type of sports columnists in their hometown that what they say is the way it goes. But that's crazy. Like that's crazy.
I'm not even sure I'm taking him over some of the other big men like Embiid or even your guy Drummond. Or
I mean, no, I think you can make a case for Jokic to be one of the best big men in the NBA.
Are you going to take him over the Greek Freak?
No, I wouldn't. Oh, do I look like I'm dying? No, I don't have a death. No. What I'm saying is that Jokic, as a big man, as a 7-foot player with the skills that he has, he's extremely good in the inside, great defensively, can shoot the outside shot, great passer, great dribbler. He's a great player. As a big man, absolutely. I'd be more than happy to debate Embiid versus him because there's things that Jokic can do that Embiid cannot. But if you're talking about the Greek Freak, who's a 6'11" center, who is essentially slated as a small forward, power forward with the skills of a point guard, just doesn't have much of the range yet. But we've seen Giannis start hitting from deep lately, so I think he's starting to finally develop that into his game. So he's becoming now a dual threat, offensive and defensive. You cannot match what that guy can do and how he's taken a simple mid-level tier team like the Bucks and turned them into a possible NBA Finals team. Jokic is not uplifting the Nuggets any further. He needs players around him to be able to make him a better player and to make the Nuggets better. But I don't want to underestimate the series between the Blazers and the Nuggets. I'm very keen on it, particularly because I want to see how long this series goes and who has enough stamina left to take on the Warriors or the Rockets, depending on who wins that series.
So let's talk about Giannis and the East real quick. I'm conflicted, guys. I have no clue. I told you guys months ago that I thought the best roster should be the Philadelphia 76ers, but I don't think Brett Brown is the coach. I'm sorry, he may be a nice guy, but he was your coach when you were tanking. That was okay when you're tanking. Now you have a roster full of superstars, and I'm not sure he's the gritty guy you need to coach through playoff series and a high-level competitive playoff series in the NBA. I just don't think so. So I'm conflicted. At this point, I have no clue, guys. I have no clue about the East. Milwaukee and the Celtics, their 2 games so far in the series have been complete reversal of each other. They're just taking turns beating each other's brains out, and the whole games are just like 10-point swings both ways. It's crazy series. So I don't know about that series. And then the other series, of course, with Toronto and Philadelphia, they're tied up 1-1 too. So, and a lot of people pick Toronto. New coach Nick Nurse, more wide open offense, I guess. They got Kawhi. So I don't know. I'm conflicted. Dan, how do you see the East playing out? Is there any particular one favorite you have now, or one or two teams that you think are going to make it, or how does it look to you?
No, I think it's completely wide open. You can make a case for any of the 4 teams that are left. I think the most talented team is the 76ers, but I think they all hate each other, and they don't really so I mean, the way the whole Jimmy Butler situation since he left Chicago makes me want to punch him in the face. Ben Simmons, I don't know if you've read some of the articles that have come out about him, whether it's missing a game in Orlando because he's partying with Kendall Jenner. It's just he can't make a shot outside of 5 feet.
Kardashian curse.
It's just a lot of things.
Yeah, you don't want no part of that, man.
If you're telling me out of all the 4 teams, I'm going to say the 76ers have the least a chance to do it, just because I think to make the finals, you need some type of team chemistry in coaching. And like you said, Brett Brown, I don't think is the answer there. I would like to see the Bucks make it like a small market like that, make the NBA finals. And, I like Giannis. I think he is the type of basketball player we need. He's not going to be chasing the money. He'll get his max deal. He's going to be one of the best players in the NBA for the next 10 years. But, turning down the role in Space Jam 2 because he wants to work out and be a better basketball player, that, I'm attracted to that. That's what I like. That's what I want to see. So I'm going to root for the Bucks. But I think, out of the entire team, they probably are the weakest out of what's left, but they have the best player. So it kind of is a give and take there. But, yeah, I think you can make the case for any of those 4 teams making it. My prediction would be a Bucks-Raptors Eastern Conference Finals, and I would tune into that. I think that would be a good defensive battle with Kawhi and Giannis going up against each other. I think is something I would want to watch.
And maybe Brad Stevens in Boston pulls it all out again. You got Kyrie back and Gordon Hayward back now after the run from last year. So maybe they are the best and with the best coach out of the East. So maybe they're like, man, with a 4 seed, but we're just going to clean house and walk through you guys like we should have done. So who knows? But maybe that's why I'm down on the Denver-Portland series, because I'm very intrigued by the Rockets-Warriors, because I really think the Rockets are going to give them a chance. And then the East is so wide open. I'm intrigued by this whole thing. I have no idea who's going to survive the East and make it to the NBA Finals. So maybe that's just why I'm kind of off on the Nuggets and the Blazers. But how's the East look to you, DDT? You got a favorite?
I like what all you guys said, because you guys hit all of the most important points. These 4 teams are a very interesting melting pot. You have the best coach in Brad Stevens with the Celtics, who have a very loaded up team with their 2 main superstars, Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving, despite the fact that injury could plague them at any moment. And then all of a sudden you have Jaylen Brown, Terry Rozier, having to pull, Al Horford. You have so many guys in there that are young who can bring this team up, but you don't know if they're the sure way in the terms of the NBA playoffs. During the regular season, you feel a little more comfortable playing them, but not in this grand stage, not when the stakes are so high. Then you have the Bucks, who their best player is Giannis, and that's it. No one really knows much about the rest of the team. Obviously, at Bledsoe, you have Middleton. They have good players, but these are not players that will, garner the attention that a player needs to pull themselves away and help another player out with these guys. They're going to leave them alone. They're going to take the chance of them shooting the 3, making the run, thinking their skills are not up to the task to take them on offensively versus their defense. Then you have the 76ers, who are all the mortal enemies. You could call the 76ers the Game of Thrones of the NBA. Each one of them is trying to destroy the other verbally, physically. And then there's Brett Brown, who is Ned Stark essentially, and gets his head cut off in the first season. And all just trying to be the nice guy, all just trying to be the guy who's trying to lead them forward. I don't put the blame on him. I think Brett Brown's a great coach. He just doesn't have the right personalities that he needs around him.
He got in over his head real quick.
Really hard. And it's not his fault. I think he deserves to have another shot at a coaching job. He's not the coach equipped for this type of situation. And then there's Toronto, who, in my opinion, I think they are my pick to get to the NBA Finals, because I think they hide under the radar just enough that you don't notice them, but there's so much talent in that team alone that they have acquired, and the coach is phenomenal, that they are just the kill.
Gasol really made them a really deep,
a huge boost. They are the kill shot team. They're the ones that they'll hang with you, and then in the fourth quarter, they just absolutely drive you into oblivion. It just defensively, they are so sound, and they are such a hard pressing team. They work so hard for every ball. Toronto is my pick to get to the NBA Finals. I know who's in it. I know who's there, but Toronto, just because they have no chemistry issues, despite the fact they traded away DeMar DeRozan, they have no chemistry issues. That team is sound, so sound they could give any Eastern Conference team a run for their money, and they are honestly the most underrated team in the semifinal.
If I had to pick, I guess I'm going to say Boston, man. I really just got a kind of gut feeling that they have a lot of depth and all those pieces back from made a run last year. And I think they have a mastermind and a coach of Brad Stevens. I think they'll just kind of just keep pecking away until they just knock everybody else off by attrition, and win the whole thing. So, but very intrigued about this whole thing. We're just really just dipping our toe into the water of the NBA playoffs, because we have a lot more to play out. So we'll talk about that down the road. Let's move on and talk about some baseball, about some fantasy baseball. Myself and DDT are going at it this week for first place in the West, Dan. Prestige Worldwide, aka Dakota Day, may have a little something to do with that, but myself and DDT going at it for first place.
Well, I mean, DDT helped you out with making yet another trade that, it leaves me just scratching my little bald head here.
I know. There's a method to my madness. I know what I'm doing is crazy. I'm just like, baseball is not exactly my favorite sport to play fantasy in.
Yeah, so my best players. Yeah.
I will explain what I'm trying to do. I don't like to trade at all. But I realize this is the one league where it's like, I don't care if I win or lose this or not. The only league I care about is the fantasy football one. And
Okay,
so
but don't stop trading. Like I know this recent trade that you made wasn't with Casey Birch, but stop trading with Casey because
I do
everybody
need to
is
stop.
trading with Casey, and they're just
I know
throwing
everyone's
their
trading with
best
Casey.
players at him, and it's going to make it difficult for. See, I'm getting angry. It's going to make it difficult for Brandon and I to make it.
I'm
back
sorry.
To the so
I can if I could appease you, kind sir, oh heavenly God of the fantasy baseball, as assuming you are now. I could give a Star Trek reference, but you never understand it. But anyway, my point is, I know, and I regret every trade I've done. But my whole intention was I don't really have a good grasp of fantasy baseball to the point where I know where the best value is. I know it's in pitching, but I want more I want to give away a good player to get a lot of players back because I look at fantasy baseball and pitchers and like some days they'll have really great days and they'll have bad days. But if you have a great amount of players that can get you decent 15 to 20 point rounds and you have a lot of them there for you, I feel that's better in the long run.
I'm with you, DDT, but here's the thing. The trade you made today is the exact opposite of that. You gave away 2 players to get 1. And one of those was Manny Machado.
Manny sucks.
Yeah, for
he
now,
sucks.
It's a slow starter.
No, he sucks. No, he sucks. No, he sucks.
That's why
he sucks.
Making baseball trades because baseball is such a long season and it's up and
up
and down.
I know, but listen, I'm running my team the way I want to run it.
You do that. Hey, you're winning. So
I'm winning. Yeah,
I'll curse you out behind the scenes.
I know you will. You've already given me your opinion. I understand. I also question what I did, but I also was like, I just want to take a risk with this and just see what happens. This is an experiment for me. I'm
pulling out wins, so that's what matters. You're not right like now, Ryan Thomas in our league. So
right now, Brandon's killing me, but I pulled in a lot of pitchers in the hopes that okay, maybe these guys will get me caught up, and then I could try with my hitting to get some points ahead. Listen, it may not work. It may be a disaster. But I just wanted to try something. When it comes to fantasy football, trust me, I won't be as giving, and I really wasn't. It took me forever to trade off Ezekiel Elliott, but it was the smartest trade I made, and it kept me, honestly, in a chance to get to the final, which I should have, and I got screwed by, and I'm not going to say his name because it just makes me angry, and I'm going to start shaking the table. But my point is, as long as I just beat Ryan Thomas every time, I have no problem with what I did this year. And listen, I made the playoffs. You still have to apologize to me.
Yeah. Oh, I'm right. I already kind of have a couple times.
But, no, you haven't. No, we're drawing this out. The stipulation was if I make the playoffs, I want a prophetic apology.
Yes. Oh, you'll get it. You'll get it. And I mean, each move you make is making that apology further and further away.
Can I go one step further? If I win the entire league, you have to name your kid after me. I'm just kidding.
Well, the kid will be here before that. So.
No, too late for that. Too late for that. But no, okay. I do get what you're saying. There were horrible trades, and I also am hoping that somehow I pull through. But.
So let's talk about players real quick. If I'm threatening to trade anybody right now, it's going to be Corey Kluber, who is my number 1 player. But that's the thing. Baseball is so up and down, so I'm not going to be panicky and pull the trigger. But he has definitely not lived up to a number 1 pick for me so far. So let me throw it to our baseball expert, Dan. What's got some guys that have been major disappointments this year and guys that have been the biggest surprises?
I mean, it's crazy because we're only a month into the year, so like with Kluber, it's hard to overreact. But at the same time, of what you're seeing, you got to be able to pass the eye test. And Kluber is, I mean, I don't think he did too bad his last start. I think it was pretty solid.
I think it's been run support the first few weeks of the season with Kluber.
Right. Yeah. So here's the thing. Let's take Corey Kluber versus Chris Sale. You take the eye test. Chris Sale is absolutely terrible. 0-5, above a 5 or 6 ERA. Kluber's not doing that bad. So, I would tend to hold. If I was a Sale owner, I would look to sell and try and recoup anything that I can get because I think there's something just going on. Whether it's a World Series hangover, he's playing hurt, something. But I expect him to hit the IL soon, just to kind of give him a step back. Whether it's mental or something, but something's going on. I mean, this is a multi-win Cy Young winner who is just pitching like a Double-A minor league player. So You gotta be able to, and it's tough for a lot for a lot of of these fantasy players. If you don't watch the games, it's tough to see if you're passing that eye test. Kluber still is, but Chris Sale, if you're an owner of his, I would look to sell because he doesn't have it. So you got to kind of balance it out that way and look, and you do the analytics of it, Brandon, so about run support and the offense helping the pitcher and things like that. So it's a way to look at it. But with Kluber, I would hold, but Sale, I would sell him.
So if we have daily fantasy players out there in baseball, who are some of the good bargains? Because I know you've probably been playing some daily fantasy baseball. So who's some of those hot guys right now as far as daily that are bargains?
Yeah, I mean, so DDT made a trade that included Manny Machado for Tim Beckham. So Beckham is a lower cost daily fantasy guy, and he's hot right now. So it's those people. You want to look at trends and how they are over the last 7 days in daily fantasy is the way I look at it, because all these baseball players are going to go on hot and cold streaks. So you want to pick up a guy who's hot, who's not necessarily going to be costing a lot. So it's all about those trends. Like a guy that I've been following because I watch almost every Astros game is Tony Kemp. He's their fourth outfielder. Doesn't play every day, but when he does play, he's batting over 300. He's getting on base. He's hitting for power, stealing bases. So it's things like that you want to look at the trends of how they are over the last week or two.
So let's move right on into it. The big beef with Thomas Take. So there's two things that I have noticed are really kind of instigated this whole thing with Dan Schalk and the My Fantasy podcast blowing up with Ryan Thomas and the Thomas Take podcast. And DDT's involved in this too. The first thing was an incident involved in his baseball league where some shady stuff was going on. Number two incident was from draft night Thursday night, where he made some comments that Dan felt were untrue, and there may have been some backlash from that. So start the story of how the beef started between My Fantasy podcast and the Thomas Take podcast, Dan, going back to the whole, because I've heard it 2 or 3 times and I still don't understand what the hell what he's trying to do in the fantasy baseball league.
Yeah, so I'll lay it. It's pretty black and white. A few weeks ago, Ryan Thomas randomly messaged every owner in his fantasy baseball league, which DDT is a part of, I am a part of, and said that he, Thomas Take, and his friend, who own Dallas Keuchel and Craig Kimbrel respectively. Now, both of those players are not signed. They are not on a team, but they were drafted. So he said to the league, we're going to be allowed to drop these players from our roster. No one is allowed to pick them up. And when they do sign, we're going to be allowed to just add them back onto our team. Essentially, he is giving him and the other owner an extra roster spot that nobody else in the league gets to because we didn't make the mistake of drafting them. When I asked him why, the reason was because they should have signed by now. Well, I'm sorry. No. No. So
hell no.
So there's that. And then it comes down to he has this vote that everybody in the league voted, and the majority said, it's okay. We don't care if you do this. We don't care if you cheat. So basically, then I went and hunted down those votes. I know of myself, DDT, and one other owner who categorically said, no, we are not going to allow this. And the way my thought is, it's an 8-man league. The 2 people who are benefiting from the move shouldn't be allowed to vote because obviously that's a yes vote. They're getting the extra roster spot. So you take away those 2 votes,
you're left
at
with
least 6 people. 3 said no, 3 said yes.
Yes.
That's
no
not
contest. No contest.
Well, you're assuming 3 said yes. You don't even know that 100%.
Right, yeah. Well, I know one is his father, so I'm assuming his dad would say, okay, son, I'll do whatever you want. So, but yes, I don't know outside of that.
But at best, it should have been 500 for a legitimate vote.
Over 500. It should have ended as a no contest because 3 people voted yes, 3 people voted no. Therefore, it's a split decision. So the vote has to either be retallied or it doesn't happen at all.
Even if there was a majority, it still shouldn't be allowed. Because
no, it shouldn't be. I could actually take the can I take this even further back than the situation here? Because I could take you back to when I was just trying to get into the league. And I had never done a keeper and I've never done Yahoo before. This is new things for me. So I'm learning how to do this. I didn't understand. I was approached by Ryan because I couldn't keep certain players, which I didn't understand. Wait, it's a roster of people I have taken on. I want to keep these players. Why can't I? And then it sent to a second issue where I had too many pitchers that I had drafted. I need to drop, but I want more pitchers. That gets me more value. But I was like, whatever. This is honestly going to be one of those you really need to do this my way type things. Like, whatever, I'll beat you anyway. But this is honestly not the last straw for me, but it does make me not want to participate because I understand that it's frustrating that Dallas Keuchel and Craig Kim haven't signed. I have Dallas Keuchel on my team now, who I stupidly picked up off free agency, thinking he would get signed within a few weeks. Got frustrated that he didn't, and I traded him off as just some extra piece. Be like, here's a fake roster spot you can't have. And then I pulled him back in because I still wanted to get signed because I keep checking in with Buster Olney. I keep checking with ESPN and MLB.com and the team, and of just who will sign this guy, and no one's signed him yet. But I'm going to hang on to him in the hopes that he will get a team, hopefully around June, July, and will be a postseason threat. But you cannot tell me that in this league, I would have to demand that when I dropped Dallas Keuchel from the first time I pulled him up or when I had drafted him, that he's mine because I drafted him. No, he was drafted and he hasn't been signed. It is up to you as the player of whether you want to keep him on your team or not. Roster spots and draft moves do not constitute making law-abiding decisions within a league.
Yeah, and that's
simply based on. This is simply based on. It's a logic game. This is logic. This is not like rules.
Wasn't Adrian Peterson going into the season unsigned as of time of a lot of drafts a couple years ago?
Yeah, it was not this draft, but the previous one.
Yeah, I mean this is not uncommon, but I've never heard of anyone trying to do this.
No, it's manipulating the system.
And here the other issue is basically you're changing the rules of the league mid-season. I mean, you can't. It's like if I went into the fantasy football league in week 6, I'm like, hey guys, I'm going to change how many points a quarterback makes, when they throw a touchdown because I'll
hunt you down.
Patrick Mahomes, and he's going to throw more touchdowns than you. I mean,
I would love that. I would love that.
It doesn't make sense. It's just not right. And you're right, Dylan. I mean, Ryan had a lot of funky rules. You're not allowed to have a pitcher on the bench. You can't have so many people. You can't keep certain players, but you can keep other players. So, going in, the rules were a little funky. I just didn't think the rules would just change, 4 weeks into the season. It's still mind blowing to me. So, I still don't understand it. But now I understand why Ryan.
I understand it. It's straight up cheating. I understand it. It's cheating.
Okay, so that is
manipulating the system as an owner to make it so you can win.
Everyone is going to agree that was crazy. Okay, I've never heard of anything like that. So let's talk about part 2 of the continued beef. So what happened on draft night, Dan?
Well, I was a little tipsy, so I can't really fully tell you everything. But,
and I was live tweeting the whole thing.
This is the first thing that I'll say. I mean, when Dan gets a little drinks in him, my inhibitions let go, and I go to town. So I think we all know Ryan Thomas. I respect him. I mean, it dropped a lot recently. But I respect his drive, his will, his ability to talk into a microphone, his somewhat knowledge on sports. But what I don't like is when somebody is flat out reporting fake news and false information. And then when you confront them with facts saying this is not true, please do not report this. And then they say, no, it is true. It is. It's just not. So ultimately what happened is I pounded a lot of beers and I got on Twitter. And you don't want to do that during
never a good mix. Never.
So
can we please get that on a shirt? Can we get that on a shirt?
Hey,
just have him wear that.
At least it was Twitter and not Snapchat though, right, DDT?
Oh, no. I think Twitter is the most dangerous place for any man intoxicated of any style of beer, when it's Bud Light. Get me with some Coronas in me, dude. I'm likely to say anything.
Heineken.
Not
But
only that,
I
I was mixing Bud Light and Mike's Hard Lemonade. So come on now.
oh my God, what were you
So
on
I
it?
was-
What? You're about to be a father. You need to
Well,
relax.
I'm getting it all out now. It's all out. I'm getting it out before
I was
midnight.
live tweeting the whole thing. All I had was just a Corona, and I just had some chips because I just thought it was gonna be a long night. And I was live tweeting the whole thing, which I had never had done before, so I was automatically under a lot of pressure. But when this
Dude,
started
great job.
popping up, oh, thank you. That was hard. That was harder than the live show. I would have rather done a live show. But when I was watching this, kind of go down, I wanted to try and I don't mean to say this in a bad way, Dan. I wanted to try and steer away from this because I was like, I have control of a brand right now. My owner's going off on this one dude who we both got beef with right now. I need to try and focus on the live draft. So I was just like, all right, children, let's play nice. We can talk about this later. But I didn't watch the entire thread because I just ignored it because I just had to focus on what I was doing. I haven't watched all the threads with the fantasy baseball thing, but I've seen it. And all in all, my whole point is this: as a member of this company, it's a site, it's a company, it's a brand, I do not want to report false information. Everything I write has to be as accurate as I can. And not every journalist can write 100% information. It's 99.99. Okay, there's always a 0.1 chance something did not come out as accurate, maybe 1 point off or whatever. But when we report false news to a group of people who trust us to put out the right information, we lose our credibility. And more importantly, as personally, we lose our credibility, because if we ever try to approach someone in the future and they see that we tweeted something or wrote something that wasn't true, they can use that against us. So I think Dan was right to have called out Ryan on that matter. I didn't believe the story. I wanted to fact check it myself. I didn't have time. I'm sure, Dan, you did your due diligence and fact checked it. You claim it's wrong. And all in all, we can't do that. We have to be able to put out the correct information. Whatever the rule is or whatever the situation is, and who saw who and what times and how many times it was done, there is not one thing that allows that to be a commonplace activity pre-draft. Honestly, it's just as vile as Pete Carroll taking his shirt off for the DK Metcalf interview. I think that also should be illegal. But all in all, it's not cool, man. Right now, Ryan's kind of getting knocked down a couple of pegs. He's kind of getting to the point where Kramer wasn't allowed into Jerry's refrigerator for a month. Okay, and we all saw how Kramer broke down from that. I don't remember what season that was. I that was hilarious. But you're not allowed in my refrigerator for a month. You have lost. I revoke your rights. I don't have a good Jerry Seinfeld impression. I'm working on it.
I don't want to get into the whole physics of carbonation with you, but the whole can.
Yes, but so ultimately, draft night, I took it too far. I'll be the first to tell you that. I was not my sober self and not my most professional that I've ever been in my life. So,
but you were highly entertaining.
I went to Twitter war, but ultimately, just to set the stage so everybody knows what we're talking about, Ryan continued to say publicly and in Ryan's profile was saying that he worked for My Fantasy Sports Talk. So when you do that, you are representing the site. You are representing MFST as a brand. And he continued to say and put out publicly that Ed Oliver took 3 pre-draft visits to Buffalo before the draft. And he even named the dates: April 7th, April 9th, April 19th. Ed Oliver came to Buffalo and visited with the team for an official visit. The only issue with that is you're only allowed one official visit. So the Bills would have been breaking NFL rules and policy. So A, they aren't going to do that, and they wouldn't do it publicly to do it. And B, Ed Oliver made his official visit April 17th. So none of the dates that he listed were the accurate dates that he made his visit. So either then did he take 4 visits? When I approached him with that, of course, this is on Twitter. No, he didn't take 4 visits. Well, Here's the CBS article citing that Ed Oliver took his visit April 17th. But Ryan would not admit that that was an accurate article and that the other dates that he provided were true. And he would continue, and it went back and forth way too long. I should have just ended it there. But ultimately, we have sponsors, and we have people that pay us money to advertise on My Fantasy Sports Talk. If a person who is publicly in their profile saying they work for us and putting out fake content and fake news and saying it is real, it's going to affect us in a negative way. And I couldn't have that. So what I did once I didn't have my mics, I finished my mics 12-pack, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop this because I was getting the shakes. I was getting so angry. So I just blocked Ryan on Twitter. I said, I'm not going to have this anymore. So I just blocked him. I said, this isn't going to go on. And that was it. I wiped my hands clean, and I said, let him do that, but I can't allow it anymore. So I put the block, whether that was right or wrong. I was probably in the wrong quite a bit that night. But I couldn't allow it to continue. So I just put an end to it, and I said, I'm not going to do it anymore. This is the only way I could, in my state of mind at that time, it's the only way I wouldn't continue to reply, because every time I replied, he would reply back with fake content. So I just couldn't allow it. So I put the block on it, and then that set Ryan off to a different level. And then the messages just came pouring in, and this is at 1 a.m. Eastern time. I'm working the next day, so I need to go to bed. I need to shut you off, and I need to sleep, pass out, whatever I was going to do. So that's kind of how it ended, and that did not sit well with Ryan. So, and then the next day is when the whole fantasy thing went down.
So just to be fair, because he's not here to defend himself,
Yep.
and when I spoke to him, he said, I don't know exactly his words. I'd have to go back and look at the original conversation, but what he was saying is the visits he was talking about were not like official visits, like he was just in Buffalo. Had nothing to do with the Bills organization. One or two of those visits was just him being in Buffalo. Whatever.
Yes, he said that. But the only problem is on the dates that he listed, Ed Oliver was taking official visits with other teams that were not located in Buffalo. So I called him out on that same point. Well, how is he in Buffalo while taking an official visit with the Minnesota Vikings? Does Minnesota and Buffalo, is that a hop, skip, and a jump away? No, it's not. So, phooey.
So, but ultimately, we're going to have a time when Ryan can come on the podcast. He couldn't make it tonight because he also just had a birthday. So happy birthday, Ryan. Sorry. Anyway, that's the reason he's not on the podcast, but we'll get him back on the podcast and we'll hash it all out. But I like a good wrestling beef anyway.
I will wrestle Ryan Thomas on the podcast if he's
hey, you're in the same city. You need to get a ring.
Suplex. Stone Cold Stunner, and then I'll chug a beer right after.
That's how.
Can I please just be the guy that just comes out of nowhere and just RKOs both of you? Just
ends it all.
All the. This is so like, I don't know if we have a lot of. I know we have wrestling fans on the site, and if they watch the podcast, great. This is if anyone is currently watching Monday Night Raw right now, this is exact shades of the Shane McMahon Miz feud that's going on right now, and it's so amazing to see this now being played out in real life. And now I'm in the storyline. I don't know what role I play, but I know I will portray one of you because that's just the role I want to play.
You could be special guest referee, and if
I can pull a Shawn Michaels and super kick the Undertaker during the Hell in a Cell match, I'm all for that. I'm all for that.
You could be special guest referee, but
I still feel like Brian should be here, though. I kind of call foul that I know it's your birthday, but on my birthday I was doing stuff. You can't come on for 5 minutes. You can't come on for 5 minutes.
We will get him on to talk about it because I really do want kind of a not necessarily face to face, but all in the same podcast debate, so we can talk about these points together, and maybe continue a working relationship in the future, or we can just have a beef and hashtag let's talk about it. So we'll do that. But either way, it's been great catching up with you guys. A lot of talk here on a huge podcast. So check out the site daily. Check out Dylan Davis Tirado, Dill Tirado, aka DDT. You never know what he's going to be up to, what club he's going to be in next, and just all the
Hopefully
big
in a town near you.
all the biz coming up summer entertainment time, so we never know what he's going to be doing. Speaking of entertainment, the entertainment section should be blowing up again big soon, Dan, with all the summer blockbuster movies coming out and all the trailers and previews and spoilers and whatnot.
Yeah, entertainment side, they're working on an Endgame piece right now. I don't watch that, so I don't really know too much about it. But they're working on something. Kira McCall, who's one of the entertainment editors, was live credentialed covering Awesome Con, which is Comic-Con in Washington, D.C. this past weekend. So while we were covering the NFL draft, she was covering Awesome Con, and the content should be coming out soon for that. So, yeah, entertainment section doing well, and the sports side, the baseball time. This is kind of the lull before the storm is the way I look at it. We got some baseball. We got the NBA playoffs going on. But pretty soon we're going to be jumping into fantasy football, college football. I did release my 2020 big board, top 20 prospects for the 2020 NFL draft. The 2020 NFL draft is the exact opposite of the draft that we just had. It's chocked full of offensive talent, where this one was defensive talent. So if you want a quarterback, if you want a running back, if you want a wide receiver, there are franchise-changing guys in that 2020 NFL draft on the offensive side. So maybe John Robinson, Brandon, was just looking ahead, and he's like, I'm not going to deal with this mediocre talent. Wait for 2020. Maybe. Who knows? He's a smart guy.
My theory was, with all the defensive talent, that's when you can grab and sneak one of those offensive guys out, right? Makes sense to me, but anyway. But so I guess y'all have never really known if I ever said Wildcats, football. If I've ever said that, y'all have no idea what I'm talking about because it's from the Wildcats movie. So must see TV, rent it, do whatever you got to do. Watch Wildcats, man. I swear, it's a football. I really can't believe Dan hadn't seen it, but it's a legendary classic football movie. So check Wildcats out. But thanks to DDT for being here, Dylan Davis Tirado. We'll get Ryan Thomas on to speak for himself coming up soon. Hopefully we get last place Orlando Torres back in here at some point on my fantasy podcast. Keep submitting mailbag questions because we'll get back into that, and just keep checking out the site daily. So for my co-host, owner, and president Dan Schalk, I am Brandon Reed. Some of you need to tighten up. Later. Peace.